Welcome to Accounting Life with Jotham Tai, a space where we'll talk about anything and everything surrounding the people that grind through your month-end accounting close.
Hi, everyone. Today's episode is about the Asian American Pacific Islander accounting journey. Our guest today is Kinman Tong, a partner at Moss Adams. On this episode, we discuss the challenges of becoming a partner, cultural differences in the workplace and how to be visible and assertive, and some fun ways to make the workplace more inviting and inclusive. Now, I'll hand it over to our host, AAPI CEO, Jotham Tai.
Hey, Kinman, how's it going?
Going well. Hi, Jotham. Good seeing you again.
I am so glad that you've joined us for today's episode, especially this month being AAPI, the AAPI month. I know I've known you for a while, but before we get into the topics for today's episode, Kinman, would love for you to just quickly introduce yourself and maybe tell the audience about your background.
Sure. And thanks for inviting me. So my name is Kinman Tong. I'm a partner with Moss Adams. We are a national accounting consulting firm headquartered on the West Coast. And I've been with the firm for more than a decade. And one of the great things that I get to do in my role at Moss Adams as a partner is not only to lead the practices in not-for-profit healthcare and education that I do, but I get to wear the hat of being one of our inclusion and diversity leader and partner sponsors for the firm. And I think that kind of ties in very well with celebrating AAPI Heritage Months, also sometimes called a PETA month, because sometimes we do want to stress the significance of DESI being included in it as well. So, and part of that is also celebrating, the diversity of the AAPI community as a whole as well. So, thank you for, getting me engaging in this topic. So,
I think only is this relevant because of the month that we're in, but definitely being in the profession for as long as probably you have. We know that the experience could be different depending on your ethnic background. And, a lot of times it's important to talk about that, to create awareness with, some of the things that we encounter in our trajectory and our journeys as accountants. So I'm glad to have you on here, especially given your work in the community. And, we'll definitely get into that later. But just to, kind of start things off. And my first question for you, Kinman. So as you're going through your journey as a partner, kind of just talk about like how challenging it is for an accountant to start as a staff auditor, ticking and tying, and the work that you have to do to get to partner, which is where you're at today.
Yeah, and that's a great question, right? It's one of those things where looking back, it feels like time just flew by so fast, right? But thinking about it, it's been a long time. It's been a long journey, and a lot of it, I'll say a lot of it started, when I was just in college, right? And one of the unique experience for me was the fact that I was, an international student that came over here to go to college to get a business accounting education, and one of the challenges a lot of time as international student or immigrant students and whatnot is just, hey, interviewing and getting an opportunity to interview and interact. Part of it is, the visa situation and circumstances around hiring and whatnot. I say that's a challenge in itself a lot of times, right? Because it's not as easy. You need to make sure that the company that you're recruiting with are companies that support visas or even the immigration status and whatnot. Fortunately, I landed an internship that kind of accommodated that, allow me to a lot of times and appreciate the diversity that I do bring. I mean, if you hear my accent and whatnot, you can tell I did not grow up here, and I think part of it is appreciating the diversity that brings and the uniqueness that brings. Doesn't come with challenges because as part of my career, there's definitely been incident where I'm being asked hey, you need to speak clearer, speak better, or whatnot. And part of it is a lot of unawareness of hey, it's okay to sound different. It's okay to come across differently as well, because all of us are different in a lot of different ways, and that's the great thing about it as well. But I think part of the journey has been, being able to find mentors and others who have gone through the same experience that I have, and not necessarily, individuals who are a PETA descent or experience or whatnot, but individuals who have kind of gone through similar, challenges in terms of assimilating. And assimilating sometimes is kind of hard because that means you're changing yourself. But I would say people who are encouraging you to be like, hey, be yourself, but learn what it means to be a professional in the public accounting space, right? How do you relate to client? How do you, understand the different cultural aspects of it? And I'll give a good example, right? I hardly know anything about baseball when I came to this country, but a lot of people that I interacted with love baseball and whatnot. So, and I definitely have learned a lot about baseball because, hey, it's the American favorite pastimes and whatnot. So part of it is that learning was important but stay true to yourself, right? I don't play baseball. I tried to play softball very badly, but at least I've experienced it and has some, I'll call it, common language or common experiences that you can relate to. So part of it is understanding that, and that has definitely helped me in my career in terms of, learning and growing both as a professional and as a person as well. And a lot of that also shaped what I do, who I am today in terms of being a inclusion and diversity leader who kind of promotes belonging, encouraging, individuals to be, true authentic self, but understanding that what that means to carry that with you as well. And I, I'm very fortunate that Moss Adams as a firm has been a firm that is very supportive of and promoting diversity and inclusion. One of the greatest things was, as a firm, we come out to say we want to be an anti-racist firm. Can't be more proud of our firm and can't be more proud that I was part of the board that kind of put that goal and motto in place, because we're not hiding behind saying, oh, we are inclusive, we are belonging. But it's like, no, we want to be anti-racist because that's the right thing and only right thing to do. And that kind of helps motivate me to do more of what I do, which is, have fun with accounting, which is, I'll call it, my real job. And then, of course, in my other job, which is promoting, inclusiveness, diversity, and whatnot. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And the point on diversity, you touched on this, right? So your client base are diverse themselves, right? So you coming in with your background and being one person out of other backgrounds within your team only offers more value for your organization to succeed in the markets that they operate in. So you mentioned baseball. That was actually the first sport I fell in love with when my family immigrated here. I was younger, I was 8 years old, but I remember being fascinated by, the tradition and the sport of baseball. So I actually picked that up as well. And then I want to touch back on one of the points that you raised earlier, or you touched on it. One of the points that you touched on earlier, which is, accents, right? So communication obviously is an important part of business. And, communication is not only from the standpoint of oral communication, but I think there's also a part of the AAPI and APITA experience that I think culturally there's a communication expectation too, right? So, I'll just kind of say this very plainly. When I grew up as an immigrant and in my childhood, my parents were always, very adamant about, don't be vocal, just, stay on track, do your job, do it really well, but don't over communicate or don't get yourself out there. So yeah, I'm wondering if you also had to deal with some of those tones as you were, working your way to be a leader at Moss Adams.
That's a great point, right? That is definitely something that is, ingrained in a lot of the PETA, culture and background. And maybe it's just, how a lot of us kind of grew up, especially if you're an immigrant from here, you grew up in countries where you're colonized and whatnot. So there was a lot of, I'll call, reaction to that whole experience of our, our ancestors and our grandfathers and whatnot, where it's, it's the nail that stick out gets hammered down, right? That whole experience. So yeah, definitely something that, I've grown up with, where it's like, hey, study hard, do well, don't do anything else, because if you do well in school, you can do whatever you want to do, which is great. But at the same time, you kind of end up not being as holistic as you should be or you want to be, right? Especially coming into the, I'll call it the Western culture in the United States and whatnot, where individuals tend to be more holistic, play sports and do everything else, but it's a lot more academic focused. So that has definitely been ingrained in me. And also the whole aspect is like, hey, don't speak up if you don't have to, right? Be
Right.
good in school, study hard, don't answer the question, don't raise your hand, whatnot, if you don't have to. But part of that is also kind of growing up and understanding that, hey, I need to be, and one of the great things, I'm good or bad thing, I guess, I was always pretty and social and extroverted and interactive in that way. So sometimes it's kind of goes against what I learned. So it's like, oh no, I shouldn't speak up so much, but I don't know how not to speak up or not to respond to questions and whatnot. So sometimes there is, I feel that sometimes people are like, oh wait, he's not the usual Asian or whatnot, right? Then there's some reaction to that as well. But I always appreciate the fact that that I have role models, family role models and other mentor role models who are like, no, be who you are, and if you have perspective and whatnot, don't be shy to share them and whatnot, and that can have driven a lot of what I do. And I use this phrase a lot that I call poke the bear when I need to, because sometimes you just have to poke the bear to make things happen. And sometimes it's creating a ripple impact that others realize that, hey, I can do that too. I can speak up too. I should speak up too, because part of a lot of the issue that we are seeing is if individuals can't speak up, if you're speaking up for others and helping motivate them or encourage them, it creates a ripple effect that is impactful. So I always say, hey, and that also kind of goes along with my philosophy that being an ally or supporting others who might not be like you, right? I might not be, I'm not a woman in the profession or whatnot, but I could relate to it. I could stand up for them. I could be an ally in kind of advocating for some of my, women managers and senior managers who have a harder time in speaking up for one reason or another. That helps, because then at least they see the support and encouragement there as well. But also make sure you're not, doing too much where you're stopping them from speaking up or doing what they need to do as well. Because sometimes you can overdo it, then you're like trying to, I'll call it the savior mentality or Superman mentality, where you think that you should save everyone. Well, sometimes you have to give them room to grow and develop as well. So
Yeah, well, you and I, Kinman, I know we've known each other for a while. I think we're at the age now where we are mentors ourselves, or should be mentors ourselves. So yeah, to kind of tie some of those points together, going back to the communication aspect, right? And just culturally, a lot of us in the Asian community, don't vocalize like our positions, which is, I think, critical, obviously, for business and to run bigger teams. I think from the standpoint of a mentor, as I think about my own journey, and as I think about fellow immigrants that are coming into the profession, like that's, I think, what I would advise them the most. And I want to get your take on this, but specifically what I mean by that, when I came in, again, my parents told me, hey, just do the work, do it well. But I think what really unlocked, my ambition to go up in leadership was starting to be okay with, saying, hey, the books got closed in 3 days. Like, let's celebrate my team for that. But culturally, we're not supposed to do that, right? We're supposed to just close in 3 days and that's it. So, as I think about my own journey, and I wish hindsight's always 2020, I wish I would have realized that earlier, Kinman. But, now that as I partner with the new up and coming accounting stars, I think my message to them would be, don't be afraid to be visible, because that is going to be a catalyst for you to open, doors thereafter, because it's not so easy to have like work recognized and appreciated without some kind of celebration, right? And I don't know if you agree with that concept, but I really haven't had a chance to talk about this with anyone at all. So I'd be interested in hearing your take, Kinman, and maybe Ryan, if you want to weigh in too after that.
Yeah, I think that I think it's funny because this whole pausing and celebrating, is something that actually I had this discussion recently with a couple of people as well, where I've talked about how we, at least for me, I've been trained to like, hey, get things done and whatnot, and when you're done, you just move on to the next goal or objective and not pause and celebrate that we accomplished something, no matter how big or small it is, because it takes a moment to kind of take it all in, right? Or the other thing is celebrating yourself. Sometimes we forget to celebrate ourselves and celebrate our achievements or celebrate accomplishment and whatnot. So I totally agree. There's something that I am like making it a very specific goal for myself to be like, hey, whenever there's a reason to celebrate very simply, go get a boba to celebrate or do something. No matter how small it is, at least it pause and take it in and enjoy, I'll call it the glory of it, no matter how small it is, because it makes it, you feel better about it, right? You feel that you have accomplished something, it pauses it, so that you're not on this, hamster wheel that you just keep spinning and spinning and spinning because you'll get burnt out. So totally agree with that. And I definitely encourage more and more of the young professionals to do that. And part of it is also celebrating with others around you, right? People who have helped you accomplish that, your team members, your family, your friends, because that makes it a collaborative, a community celebration, which is huge in our, APITA culture, is celebrating as a community. So it's like bringing that all back in together, I think will be helpful for the development and whatnot. So yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah, the celebration part. And my intermediate accounting professor at St. Mary's, he must have been psychic. But one of the points I remember him making in my final classes with him, he said, Jotham, don't forget to stop and smell the roses. As if he knew I was going to go in this like really just, crazy run and never celebrate anything. But, again, I think it just goes back to my upbringing and the culture that promotes, it's a lot like the Big Four in public accounting, right? Kinman, it's like, it's military almost. Like we go in, we do audits, and we're supposed to do audits, and then we move on.
Yeah, agreed. And part of, and maybe it's, I think there's some generational things and experiences as well. So I think that's another part that will be critical, is understanding, what motivates you and being aware of that, right? Because being able to make sure that you hone in on your motivation, and part of it is celebrating, part of it is, finding new goals and achievement. That's always helpful, because then you continue to evolve and grow as well. So I think those are all important things to be aware of. So,
and especially when you can accomplish really great things as a team and with a group of very diverse members of a team. I mean, there's just something beautiful to be celebrated. And I can appreciate, again, diversity I know gets thrown out like a term that sometimes just gets overthrown around like just a generic term, right? But for me, like coming from the Philippines and kind of knowing what a homogeneous society looks like, right? Like where everyone looks and feels and has the kind of same culture, when it's so much more special when you see like so many different groups from different parts of the world like come together, work and succeed and just hit goals. And then the celebrating part together is the nice icing on top.
Oh yeah, and of course in our APITA culture, what do we celebrate most with? It's with food, right?
Food.
And that's the great experience too, because I mean I'm a foodie. So much things around in my life revolves around food, but a lot of it is how we share in the joy, or share the celebrating, share the culture and experience and whatnot. So a lot of it is just sharing of food, and part of the experience, especially with my team as well, is just engaging in amazing food, no matter what it is and whatnot. So I think that's another great aspect about the culture, that I was like, hey, the amount of time that we always come back to about food is great. And I just came back from a vacation where all about it was about food. So trust me when I say it's a great thing, and sometimes it's one of the things that I was like, oh, I just there's just so much food to try the experience as well. So.
Well, this is a great way to bring Ryan into this conversation. In the spirit of AAPI and APITA month, what is your favorite Asian dish or cuisine?
That's a tough question. So I don't remember what this is called, but it's I had some friends who were Taiwanese and they took me to it's like a Taiwanese buffet, but you sit at the table and they bring like just tray after tray to your table and you sit there the whole time and you just kind of pick off. Have
Did
you
you have
experienced?
sticky tofu by any chance, Ryan? Because I
Yeah.
know that's one of the favorite dishes in
Yeah.
Taiwanese cuisine.
Yeah.
It's
There's a lot of seafood. It was a lot. It was very interesting. I've never had anything like it before.
It's definitely on the pungent, like flavorful side, which is
Yeah.
what I love about Taiwanese food. I have an aunt that lives in Taiwan today. Yeah, the trick with stinky tofu is you just got to get through the smell. When it's in your mouth, it's absolutely delicious.
Mhm.
There's a lot of food like that, right?
Mhm.
It's just like the durian food, where I'll be honest, I grew up in Malaysia and I do not like durian at all. Like I refuse to eat it. I don't eat it and whatnot. But but then there are so many, my whole family loves it and whatnot. I just can't get over the smell that to even try it. And that's my issue. But and one of those things is, it's the whole nose to tongue tasting is just different experience there. So
One of the tricks I've heard with durian, Kinman, is to have it with Coke. I know it's common in the Philippines, which is where I'm from. So it's for some reason they go well together, I guess. I haven't tried it myself. So if you're listening here, don't try it without confirming with someone else. And Kinman, really exciting to talk about the accounting profession and how culture and AAPI and APITA experiences weave into that. But if you want to just share with the audience some of the work that you're doing in the AAPI and APITA community, we'd love to hear more, and maybe segue into how professionals like us can get involved.
yeah, and that's another great way to kind of get engaged, right? Get engaged, be allies in this space, and we know that in the past few years there's a lot going on with the AAPI or PETA community, with a lot of hate crimes and whatnot that's going on and still going on, unfortunately, and a lot of reaction to it, and one of the best thing to happen is how all the communities, especially the Black community, Hispanic community, Latino communities, and whatnot, coming together and support each other through this time. And so a lot of that has been motivating me to get more involved back in my API community. And a lot of it is helping drive our Asian BLG activities and within the firm to create awareness, create learning opportunities and whatnot. As well as being involved in ASCEND, which is the Asian Pacific Islander leadership group for accounting and finance and whatnot. So those are definitely avenues, and of course, there's so many organizations out there, Stop AAPI Hate, and Asian Pacific Fund and whatnot, that you can engage and be involved and give back. But one of the things that I recently had an opportunity to get involved back. And was recently appointed onto the Asian Health Services board of directors. Asian Health Services is a federally qualified health centers. It's a healthcare not-for-profit based in Oakland, but they serve anyone, actually, not just Asian American, but anyone who needs access to healthcare, affordable healthcare, access to social services and whatnot in the Bay Area. Yeah, I know that the name says Asian, which is a big focus of their work and how they started, but a lot of their work is serving anyone in the community in need of health services, and a bunch of their new project actually is addressing some of the AAPI hate issue and concern, and also just access to available care, because one of the things with COVID is a lot of care models has evolved, right? A lot of virtual visits and whatnot. But a lot of the population has no access to getting virtual visit because they don't have good internet or even good computer devices or whatnot to do that. So part of that is also addressing this what we call a digital gap, where they might have even access to healthcare. So part of the work has been great. So a lot of it is kind of looking at, how do we continue to evolve and change through time, through COVID and hopefully past COVID, what that means and working in the community and addressing this as well. So I'll say, it's one of the great things that I get to give back both in the community that I'm in the East Bay, in the community that I'm part of, which is the AAPI community. And at the same time, giving back in terms of my expertise in healthcare, finance, accounting, and whatnot as well. So great synergy of what I get to do. So.
And Kevin, that's why I have so much admiration for what you do in the community. As long as I've known you, you've been active, and you being part of Moss Adams Diversity and Inclusion Board, Asian Health Services, and everything else that you've done. I think it's incredible. And this is exactly why I was really excited to have you on the show today for AAPI and APITA month. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we really appreciate everything that you're doing in the community and for the accounting profession. So we were really glad to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Well, it's always good to reconnect with you, and it's been great to kind of see a lot of the work that you do as well. So thank you for this time, and glad that we can chat over this, and maybe we can share some food as well as we celebrate a APITA month. So
I like that as an action item for this episode. Thank you so much, Kinman.
Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want more information, please check us out at gapify.com, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.